So welcome to the video. In this video I'm going to be showing you how I made my shed in our garden on stilts. We live in a new build estate, and a bit of information about the garden is the image you can see on here. The fence is sitting on not even a retaining wall, it's on the concrete blocks, fence blocks, and then behind it is a big gap about this big. And then you've obviously got the main wall on. Well, for you it's that side, so that's fine, that side, but I was worried about just putting a concrete slab on the garden and that then displacing all the weight of the dirt against the concrete blocks, and I wasn't really happy with that. So the idea was put the shed on stilts, and then your weight distribution is then point loads where the fence posts are going to be, as opposed to a distributed load. So that was the idea. I had all this dirt at the end of the garden from digging up the slabs at the other side, and you can't really tell from this image, but down the bottom left of the garden it really sloped down, so I wanted to use this dirt just to level the garden off. Our dog Lucy just sniffing around in the dirt. I mean, there's a little video of her. So the first thing I did was I put some wooden sleepers at the end of the garden, in between the fence posts going upright, so that any weight that came above the level that concrete blocks would be against them as opposed to the fence, and it would rock the fence. And I used a roller just to roll the garden out flat. I then began to mark out where I wanted the base to be. I knew what size I wanted it to be, because our garden is just over 6 meters long, and so I was going to make the shed 6 meters long, and it would give me a 125mm gap down each side. I then laid all the wooden 2x4s out in the positions that I wanted them to be and the levels I wanted them to be, so I could mark them with the small pieces of wood in the ground, just to hammer them in to show where I wanted to dig the holes. And then one by one I put the fence posts in, the small pieces of wood all along. I tried using string, but the length was so long it just didn't work. And once I had them all in position, there you go, that's the other side, and then that's the full width of the outline of what the base is going to be. I then began to dig out the holes where the small wooden posts were marking, and I used I don't know if you call it a hole digging spade. It's that one you can see just on the left there. And honestly, one of the best purchases I made throughout the whole of this shed build. You literally stab it into the ground, pull it apart, lift it up, and it creates a perfectly circular hole going downwards, as opposed to trying to get your spade in and try and get it out. So for like £35, I think it was, well worth the purchase. I then, funny enough, used my phone to check that the level was correct, and I think I saw this on Google on how you could do it. You put the grid on your phone, so you've got the grid on the camera. I lined it up with the fence post, where the fence is, to make sure that the camera was level, and then you can draw a straight line to see if you're level. And on the left side, that side, you can see that I've got a level coming towards me, because I made it level with the slabs at the top end of the garden. And then the red line goes along, and it's level with the two pieces of wood on the far right, which shows that the base that I'm intending to do is going to be level. So these are the holes that I dug with the shovel. They're perfectly circular. I got just your standard treated fence posts, and then these holes were just a little bit bigger than what the spade was round. And the idea of that is that you can put your fence post in and have a bit of room around the fence post for like the postcrete that I'm going to put in to sit all the way around, and it not just be on the four sides. So these are the first two that I put in, and I did this because where the wall is sitting, there's a bit of concrete that they've done at low level under the ground, which is perfectly level. So them two fence posts are sitting on that, and then I've post-created them in the ground at that level. So the whole level will be based on these two posts, because I know that they're perfectly level, and yeah, it just makes it all flow all the way through. The idea with the fence posts that I'm putting in the ground is I've got 1200mm long fence posts. I cut them all in half, so 600mm each. I put the cut side facing up so that the treated side that hasn't been cut was in the ground. And then I put them all in the ground and make sure they're level by attaching the 2x4s as I went along. Just made it so much easier to do it that way, to make sure it was all level. So then I did the next. The first bit takes the longest, but once you get going and you've got your level, you just flow on and on and on. So my next level along, this is all perfectly level. I kept checking with my long level, putting it on the bits of wood, check that they were all the right heights, and I just did this going all the way along, putting all little supports in between each parts. My only thing is, normally people just do lines like that. Stick to that, because I tried to do something a bit clever, where if I had my fence post here, I'd have a bit there, a bit there, a bit there, and a bit there. And now when I walk on the floor, there's bits that are dipping, so I'm having to put another floor on top just to solidify that all together. So stick to your traditional lines, and it will make your floor a lot better. These, I've just put the post-creep bags that I had spare on the tops of the post, just so when I left them overnight, if they had to settle, they had a bit of weight on them to settle properly. Then that's just a different angle. And then this is the finished underneath layout of all my your supports. And as you can see, like on the far down this side and over on the other side, there's quite a big gap. And that's where my boards are sort of bouncing a little bit. Not too bad, it's not the end of the world. But if I'd done a normal traditional lines, it would have been a lot stronger. I then laid, probably overkill, but I laid the protective screeds, or what's it called? The weed membrane, that's it. I put the weed membrane down underneath the shed, just to, I know all it's doing is stopping light, but I just didn't want anything to get under, grow up underneath, because it's just so inconvenient. And I also did it around the edges as well, which is what's under the shingle. The idea of putting the shingle around the outside is not only it allows slow drainage of water, so the water isn't just laying on the grass next to the wood and hitting the wood, it's slowly filtering through, and it just helps reduce the risk of any mice or anything getting underneath. That's why I did that. I then started to put my boards down on top, and again I've made it 6 meters by 2.4 meters so that I could just lay the bits of wood on top and I didn't need to cut any of them. That was the idea of that. And there you go, that's the base, perfectly finished. It was like a stage when it was done, but it's the equivalent of having a concrete base. It might not last as long. Like I was saying at the start, the weight is distributed over point loads. So I've got no worries of that back wall collapsing and the whole shed falling backwards, because once I dug down, well, obviously, you know, the post was 600mm, so they were at least 500mm in the ground, at least. Once I got past the softer dirt, it was like clay, and it was like clay and stone, so it was a hard ground. So them posts are concreted in at a good level. They're not going to go anywhere, and it's a very cheap way of creating a temporary base. You know, it's not permanently fixed. And yeah, well, that's it for that's just a picture of the wood that I had for later on in the shed project. Yeah, if you've got any questions, you know, I'm not a professional, but if you've got any questions, drop them down below. I'll try my best to answer them. I learned how I went along with this one, and yeah, I'm very happy how it came out. If you did enjoy it, leave a like and subscribe.